My name is Laura Burns. I'm a friend of Grant Patterson, and I'm interviewing Grant because he wrote a novel. The novel's called Southern Cross, a Will Bryant thriller. It's one in a series of 4 books that he wrote regarding this character, Will Bryant. Grant, I have the question about this book and why you picked this country. You said to me once that not many English-speaking books are based in Brazil.
That's true. A lot of people tend to think of Brazil only in terms of a certain very few stereotypes that we're all familiar with. Football, samba, carnival. Their comprehension of Brazil begins and ends with Rio de Janeiro and the Amazon. And that's pretty much it. Well, I have been going to Brazil since 2006. As you know, my wife is Brazilian, my kids were born there, and I've actually lived and worked there. And the setting of Southern Cross will be something that attracts the reader, I hope so.
What started you writing?
Writing basically started as a kind of a therapy for me. I was always interested in reading. I've been a voracious reader since I was a child, but my work in the Canada Border Services Agency led me to see a lot of strange behavior from the human race, some very curious decision making from some of my superiors, and writing arose as a kind of a therapeutic response to that, because writing, I always like to say, is the last refuge of free speech. You know, you can say things in a fictional book that you can't really say in a Facebook post or a letter to the editor, I think.
I've known Grant for over 30 years. We met back in theater school. During that time, I saw Grant as a creative person. And how does that tie into your writing about characters, different from acting?
Well, you have much more freedom as a writer in that you're not stuck to somebody else's script. You can write the whole thing yourself. And I really like that about writing, is that I'm in charge and I'm responsible for every success and every failure in that book. However, I deliberately went out of my way to make him not me, because I wanted to create a different sort of character. I felt just writing a version of me and putting him on the page was a bit lazy. So I wanted to make him quite different, and he is. He comes from a very different family background. He's a jock. I was never a jock. He's a big, imposing man, which I'm not. And all these sorts of things, they made it more interesting to write him for me, rather than just writing a version of myself.
And I like the different characters that you've developed within Southern Cross. There are many characters, and the plot is quite layered. What did you learn from creating in that concept?
I learned lessons, both positive and negative, about it. Mostly positive in that I had written this book by the seat of my pants, meaning basically I just started writing and let the action take me where it was going to take me, rather than trying to plot everything out and construct painstaking. You know, your endings should surprise you as much as they surprise the audience. And I like that idea. I always have. And I find that my endings do come as a bit of a surprise to me sometimes, because I take that approach. So I figure if my endings and my twists and turns are going to surprise me, maybe they'll surprise the readers too. But I got a bit overambitious at one point, and I was saved by an editor who really helped me pare it down to a more manageable size and eliminate a few of the subplots that just seemed to be too much. Right, so I was greatly helped in that by an editor.
Excellent, yeah. I note that, the job when you worked at the border, the repetition of everything, Grant and I, our paths crossed as well. We both started working for Canada Border Services, and we subsequently have both left. Grant has done writing, and I'm his coach. I coach other people, other law enforcement personnel. And part of this is the things that surprise you. about this journey. And one of the things I'm surprised about is how many different stories you've come up with since Southern Cross.
Yeah, I mean, some people, when they ask about writing, one of the first questions they want to ask is, well, is it hard to come up with the ideas? And I always say, no, it's not hard to come up with the ideas. It's hard to find the ones to focus on, right? Because I have lots of abortive attempts at writing a book about something that interests me in my files. But it's only a few of them that have the legs to become a book, where you latch onto them and you figure, no, okay, I can really take this where it needs to go. And that's one of the strengths about writing a series, is that you already have that established background and those foundational characters there. So a lot of the work of writing a new novel is kind of done for you already. You have to invent everything from scratch.
Did you expect to make it a series of 4 books?
I always visualized it at least being that, if not more. But basically the reason I made it 4 books is I wanted to end the story arc that I was on, and which I've done, but I still wanted to do it in such a way that I could leave it open if I wanted to come back to the characters.
Excellent. Yeah. So one question, Grant, that I love about how you write, the characters have a voice, and you said to me once that you write what they write, what they think, and how they see.
Well, I've toyed around with a lot of narrative formats, and I think the only real way to write a book like Southern Cross and its sister books is to write from an omnipotent narrator's point of view, and to get yourself in the head of many different characters, because it's not the sort of book that lends itself to first-person narration or a sort of limited third-person narration. It has to be that omnipotent viewpoint. It just has to be to make the story advance. And in that way, you get to see the action from the perspective of not just the cops, but the crooks too. And I think that's really interesting. I really enjoy writing the criminal characters in the novels too.
And so I'm excited about, and I'm sure your readers are, what is next for you? What can we expect?
Up until January, I only had 2 books out on the market, Southern Cross and the sequel, Back and Slowly. But I've decided to give self-publishing another chance and to focus on the marketing and to get my books out there rather than just have them moldering in my hard drive. So I've got 5 more books out there now. 2 of them are in the Will Bryant series, The Wolf of Peña and Only the Dead. And then there's 3 other books that are standalones, Good Time Charlie, When Your Number's Up, and Bombersman. So they're all available now.
Thank you, Grant. Yes, Grant has a website, grantpattersonauthor.com.
Yes.
And you can also buy these books on Amazon and anywhere in the Lower Mainland in British Columbia. Thank you so much.